Grab your pruners, some string, and some garden staples. It's time to tame the beast. That means pruning and trellising your GreenStalk. And if yours are looking anything like mine, I want you to join me and let's do this together. Hey folks, if we haven't met, my name is Tara. I garden in the Bay Area and I am the proud owner of 11 GreenStalks. Yes, I am addicted. And I've owned them for about 4 years, so over the course of time, I've come to learn a thing or two on how to keep them thriving through the summer. And I actually have an entire playlist dedicated to the beginner and also the experienced GreenStalk. I'm sure you'll learn a thing or two. I've curated it in order, so I will put a link to it at the end of this video. Be sure to check it out. Now, GreenStalks are container gardens at the end of the day, but unlike most container gardens, they function in a very different manner, and because of that, pruning and trellising them are hyper important. And I'll show you around my GreenStalks and you'll get to see what I'm talking about when I bring you up close. I'm actually going to start you off with an extreme example of GreenStalks that have not been pruned, so you can see how bad they can get. Now, I have not pruned these GreenStalks primarily because of this little guy. Let me zoom in here. I believe that's a junco, and she or he has made their nest in this GreenStalk. And whenever I get anywhere close to the GreenStalk, she starts really making a racket and actually starts diving at me. So she's kind of got me scared. I have left that GreenStalk alone. It belongs to her now, and I'm not going to touch it. And correspondingly, I'm not touching this one either, even though there is no nest in this. Since this one is messy, I might as well balance it out with another messy one. But aren't they just beautiful in spite of being not pruned and not maintained? And oh, by the way, these GreenStalks are only watered from the top, not a single drop of water from the pockets. And this has been going on for several months now, and they are still thriving. So yeah, that top watering system can really work if you don't have any blockages along the way. Now, I want to bring this a little bit closer if she'll let me, because I want to show you some of the gorgeous blooms that I've got going on in this razzleberry tower. Yeah, it is a razzleberry. If you look down there, you can actually see the color. Marguerite daisies, geraniums, and these right here are cherry brandy rudbeckias. Aren't they gorgeous? And those pink flowers in the back there, those are verbenas. More geraniums, tons of sweet alyssum. Turning around over here, more and more verbena. Verbena is such a pretty flower to have in your GreenStalks. I've got coleus, I've got fuchsia, I've got some clarkia, and I've got some plants that really need to be taken out. Maybe I will do that just to kind of settle this GreenStalk a little bit. It's looking super messy. All right, I'll let you take care of your babies, and I'm going to go back to the other GreenStalks. Now, flowers are actually pretty forgiving because they don't need as much nutrients and frankly not even as much water as some of your vegetables. Vegetables, if you do the same thing that I did to those GreenStalks and kind of leave them alone, you probably won't get much of a harvest. So let's turn around and take a look at my vegetable GreenStalks. Let's start with this one, which is right next to my greenhouse. And by the way, in my greenhouse, I've got lots of things that are coming along. Many of them actually are destined for my fall GreenStalks. We'll do a tour some other time. But take a look at this. What do you see? And more importantly, what do you not see? One of the things that you can't quite see anymore is this gorgeous coleus. It is hidden and starting to get shaded out by all these enormous plants around it. The eggplant, this tomato, which is kind of interesting. If I look down here, it's a volunteer tomato that has completely fallen on its side. Aha, needs to be trellised. And oh, by the way, what in the world is this? Look at these long peppers. These are Jimmy Nardellos, you guys. I have never seen such long Jimmy Nardellos in my life. These are at least, I would say, if I stretch it out, about a foot long. And these turn a gorgeous red lipstick color, and they are so delicious. One of my favorite peppers to grow, and it is quite loaded. And fortunately not being shaded out because the leaves are all the way up here. If it was one level down, it would be behind these eggplants and these tomato plants, and it would not be performing the way that it does. If I gently try to spin this GreenStalk around, see this tomato plant. It has gone huge. I mean, it's coming all the way from this bottom tier. And by the way, it is a determinate variety, an ACE 55, and it has grown all the way to the top. I keep my GreenStalks at 4 levels high because I find that the most convenient, and this is all the way to the top. It is starting to fruit, as you can see over there, and lots of blooms. So I'm hoping to get lots of fruit pretty soon, but I won't if I'm going to leave it looking like this. What I'm going to have to do is trim off a lot of the foliage, because what's happening is this little tier at the bottom, it does not have enough water or nutrients to be able to maintain this plant. And as a result of it, as the day wears on and the days get hotter, this is going to lose moisture very quickly. It's going to be consistently drying out, and it is just not going to be a happy plant. And as a result, I won't get much fruit. So I'm going to have to trim off a lot of the foliage and maybe some of the side branches as well. Though with a determinate tomato, you don't want to prune off many of the side branches. Each side branch gives you fruit. So, and determinates, once they produce their flowers and fruit, they're done. They don't do any more. So I'll have to do that very, very judiciously. I'd rather actually come here and trim off a long branch like this, maybe cut it halfway down so that there are still some leaves, but not enough to actually suck up all the nutrients that are needed to grow some nice tomatoes. So when it comes to pruning tomato plants, and frankly any plants, there's one rule that I follow very, very diligently. This actually applies even to fruit trees. Do not take off more than a third. A third is the maximum you should go for when you remove branches and things from plants, because it is going to take the plant a while to recover from the shock of having had so much taken away from it. You take any more than that, the plant will really struggle. So be gentle with your plants. Do not take more than a third off. Give them at least a couple of weeks to settle in, and then go and do more if you need to. I came around the other side to show you this GreenStalk. Remember where those peppers were? Those Jimmy Nardellos? Well, I've got another tomato plant growing here. This actually is, I believe, an Adelaide festival. It's a dwarf tomato plant growing from the bottom here. And that means I've actually got 2 tomato plants growing from this bottom tier. That is actually a terrible idea. I should not do that, but I did. You know, chicken math, when they're so tiny, you're like, oh, there's plenty of room, but there really isn't. No more than 1 tomato plant, dwarf tomato plant or determinate tomato plant per tier. Now, I'm going to have to be doubly careful about making sure that this stays watered and that there's nutrition. And this plant, actually, there's a lot of leaves that are starting to dry out, and that is bothering me a little bit, but I am going to remove all of these dried out leaves, you know, as part of my cleanup process. And that's another thing that you need to do. Just remove any diseased leaves, yellowing leaves, as soon as you see them, because if it is disease, then if you don't remove it, then the plant is going to continue to get worse and worse. So yeah, take away any diseased leaves, look for pests. I can see some stuff getting eaten over here, not really sure what that is. You want to look carefully and make sure that you've got no caterpillars and things like that. So yeah, take a careful look at your plants and carefully remove all these leaves. By the way, check out these tomatoes, you guys. And why do I have this metal mesh over it? Because of that. What am I pointing to? Squirrel damage. Squirrels come and they eat all of my squash plants, and they also steal my tomatoes. So I'm trying all kinds of things. Obviously, this cage that I've put at the bottom here is not working. The squirrels are able to get in and they're able to kill off my squash plants. So if you've got any ideas on how to prevent squirrels from getting to the bottom tier, do let me know. I know you're saying don't plant squash in the bottom tier. Note to self, I won't. Another thing that you do need to do is take aggressive action when you see things like this. This is a calendula plant. It is completely gone. I think it's spider mite damage, not really sure what it is. It has dried out. I'm going to give this a hard prune. If it does decide to come back, good for it. If it doesn't, oh well. Oh, and another thing that I want you to make sure that you do when you're looking at your tomato plants, look at the branches that have the fruit on them. If they are not staked, tied to anything, then you do need to stake them, because these things get really heavy and they will pull and break the branch. So you can see that I actually have been pretty good about staking this branch. I've got 2 strings that are tying this up. And let me show you what I'm using those garden staples for. Let's see whether I can get all the way in here. Ta-da! Yep, garden staples are so useful to tie strings around to be able to prop up your plants. This tomato plant, I've got practically in every tier, I've got garden staples that I've tied it to. So those are super useful. Yeah, and GreenStalk actually sells these garden staples that double up as labels that you can use, and they've got it nicely bent so that you can easily tie your strings around it. But these regular garden staples do the job as well. Okay, let's go ahead and clean up this tomato plant. Now, I have got some sharpened pruners that I've actually cleaned nicely, and I've also got a little bottle of 70% rubbing alcohol, just the regular rubbing alcohol that you get at the pharmacy. And what I use this for is particularly between tomato plants. I do not want to transfer disease between them, so I give my pruners a quick squirt, and that should kill anything, and then I can move on to the next plant. So for this one, tomato plant, I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. Now, unfortunately, I've got a nice branch over here, a sucker, if you will, that I'm going to have to take out because it's all the way down here. But one of the nice things that you can do with this is you can actually root it. So just remove most of the leaves. You just want to leave a little bit at the top, stick it in some water, and within about 2 weeks, tops, you should be able to see nice little white roots starting to form, and you can get yourself a whole new tomato plant. So these leaves all need to go. Now, I can't take away too much foliage in the Bay Area where I live because it is so hot over here, and if I remove all the foliage, the plant is really going to struggle and it's going to burn. So I will actually keep a lot of the foliage. There's another nice sucker. Now, the nice thing about determinate tomatoes is they grow pretty fast and they produce all of their flowers and fruit in a short period of time. So in the Bay Area, I actually have time to grow another set of tomatoes, fall tomatoes. So I've got my bin over here so I don't make a mess, which I've already started to do. And then you can see some of the leaves here starting to really yellow. These are old leaves and they're starting to get spider webbing on them. I'm hoping these are regular spiders and not spider mites, but spider mites cause a lot of damage to tomato plants. So you want to get rid of those yellowing leaves as soon as possible. Now, as you remove more of these leaves, remember that you will need less water for the tomato plant as a result of it. So that's a huge benefit, and less nutrients as well, because it's all going to be focused on whatever the remaining plant is. So yeah, feel free to go ahead and take off anything that you don't think that the plant really needs. And definitely don't cut away the branch that has a large tomato on it. All right, that is already looking so much better. Let's chop off some of this coleus. There are way too many leaves here, and frankly, I'm not in love with this coleus. It is mostly green leaves. I want this little coleus to come through. It's so pretty. Look at that long branch, not doing very much other than shading out my pretty coleus here. Take off some of these eggplant leaves while I'm about it. Look at that, so much better. Now it's going to grow faster. Now you should come out here and maintain your GreenStalks regularly. You don't need to do it all in one shot like I'm doing right now after I've neglected it, but you should come, I'd say, every few days or so and do just a little pruning and trimming, and that will kind of help you stay on top of things rather than let it get to this state. Yeah, it is a lot of maintenance to have summer GreenStalks. They do tend to grow very quickly, and they do tend to shade each other out. And so if you do want optimal performance, you have to take care of them. I've got a volunteer, some kind of plant growing here, and I can't bear to cut it off. I think it's a cantaloupe, so let that thing grow. All right, I think this side is looking nice and cleaned up. Let's go around the other way. Don't forget to squirt your pruners. You're switching tomato plants, and you don't want to communicate any diseases. All right, again, starting from the bottom, I'm going to be removing these dried out leaves. This one's looking okay for the most part. I just want to make sure that it is properly staked, and it looks like it is. Just need to remove all these dry leaves. And while I'm about it, there's a dried out calendula plant that I'm getting rid of here. Remove some of the eggplant leaves as well. Eggplants are always so prone to spider mites, and they get it and they share it with their neighbors. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now on this GreenStalk, I've got some petunias. Actually grew them from seed. I'm really proud of them, but they've grown really tall and lanky and leggy, and I should really have pruned them a lot sooner. So we're going to go with the 1/3 rule. I'm going to take them down by about 1/3. And while I prune these, I'd like to try and make sure that I am pruning them where I see new growth emerging. That way I can make sure that they recover much faster. Now I am pruning off a lot of the budding stems. Unfortunately, that's what I need to do to get this under control. So it'll be a while before I see petunia blooms, but that's okay. These are all coming out from the first top tier over here. So these have all got to go. Petunias are very, very thirsty plants. So they will really steal a lot of water from their neighbors. So you got to manage petunias in your GreenStalk. Now you can root these. These actually root quite easily. Get one of the thinner, younger stems, kind of the growing tips, and root those, remove any buds, and root those maybe just about that much, 6 inches, with at least 2 nodes in them, and they'll root in a couple of weeks. I'm growing a lot more petunia varieties from seed because I was so excited about how easy it was to grow them. I had no idea it was so easy to grow petunias. So now I'm growing some really nice, neat varieties as well. But more on that in a different video. This is a tomato plant, and I forgot to clean my pruners. Happens. Better late than never. This is another Ace 55, like that first one that I showed you. This is a pretty nice, large tomato plant. Lots and lots of foliage that needs to be trimmed, and there's a nice large eggplant here as well that I'm going to be removing some of the bottom leaves from. Those don't photosynthesize as well as some of the new growths, so it's best to get rid of the older growth. And I've got parsley that has gone to seed. Remove some of those branches as well. Some more petunias that I want to chop down a bit. Lots of spiders, possibly spider mites. Now, as you remove some of these large, bigger leaves, you will actually let more light go through to the bottom layers and also more airflow. So it's overall, the plants are going to be healthier if you prune them regularly. So much better. So these other GreenStalks are actually much younger, planted much later, but I'm going to show you what's going on in them, and hopefully we're done with most of our pruning for now, because I really don't like pruners. When I was a little girl, my brother was pruning plants. You know, he was 8 years old, I was probably 6.5, and I was holding the branches for him, and he actually almost chopped off my little finger, and there was blood and gore everywhere. I still remember that, and I think I even still have the scar. But yeah, pruners and me are not friends. I don't know what my parents were doing. How come they let us play with pruners when we were that young? But let me show you some of these other plants. I've got some really interesting plants. Let me show you up close. So this one, for the most part, is all beans. They're mostly bush beans, and I am using this trellis. This trellis comes in really handy for propping up things like beans, because they don't grow that large, so they just need a little bit of support. But you can see that they are full of flowers, and the beans are starting to come. This was all completely direct seeded, so really proud of these. And then in this GreenStalk, I've got several plants that I'm growing for the first time. I've got this one, which is called a Tiger melon. It's a nice compact melon. And you'll see that on all my GreenStalks, I have got these Texas tomato cages is what they're called. And they can actually be stacked one on top of the other infinitely, but I'm using just one level. Last year I used 2 levels. It was just out of control, way too high. So I've got the more compact varieties, and I am excited to grow this one. I've got a dwarf variety of okra. This is called Cajun Jewel, again growing it for the first time. I've got this lovely, interesting bean. It's actually a morning glory family, and it's called a clove bean. So you're supposed to eat the pods really young. So very keen to grow this. And let's see, any other interesting plants in this? Oh yeah, this one I actually grew from a sucker. This is a Rosella purple dwarf tomato. It is probably one of my favorite tomatoes ever. Definitely the best dwarf tomato I've ever grown. Beautiful, large, delicious, very, very sweet and tasty and slightly tart fruit. And I've got more eggplant here. I've got this beautiful coleus, and I don't remember what the name is, something flames. And doesn't it look like flames? And then spinning around here, I've got arugula. Have you guys ever grown wild arugula? It is a very heat-tolerant arugula. It's a perennial, and it grows really nicely from cuttings, and it is delicious, and it grows beautifully in the GreenStalk. Oh, and one thing I need to come and prune back quite a bit is this sweet alyssum. Now, sweet alyssum, you actually want to prune from the bottom up because that's where most of the older growth is. So I would grab all of this and chop it off. And then on the top, I would just sort of snip off the tips, and that will result in new growth and new blooms. Yeah, and this GreenStalk is another sweet alyssum plant. This plant really grows wild, you guys. You absolutely have to maintain sweet alyssum if you're growing it in the GreenStalk. Look how lopsided it's making the plant look. Not pretty. So I'm going to have to do a nice solid trim of this one. And then I've got a lot of strawberries growing in a lot of pockets. This was supposed to be dedicated to strawberries, but just didn't happen because of sweet alyssum and a lot of other bad things that I did, which causes strawberries not to grow well. But there's still some left, so I'm going to keep them there, and let's see whether they continue to grow. I've got some old dead violas that need to come out, and hey, look at that. I got a pocket available. And then finally in this GreenStalk, again, a lot of the same things, but I do like growing marigolds in all of my GreenStalks, usually in the top tier. They just do really well. And this basil, you guys, this is called cardinal basil. Maybe the next time I show this planter to you, it would have produced a bloom, but it produces these gorgeous purple spikes. Don't look like basil at all, but it is delicious also. It actually tastes exactly like Thai basil. So, and the leaves are much larger, so they go a lot further than Thai basil. But the blooms are the ones that are absolutely lovely. And I've got some nice little purple basil kind of shaded out over here. Maybe I'll spin it around so it can get some more sun and grow a little bit better. By the way, folks, I am a GreenStalk affiliate, so if you do choose to buy GreenStalk products, I really would appreciate it if you use my affiliate link. It's in the description, and also if you use the code GREENLOVE10, you should get $10 off your entire order as long as it's $75 or over. Thank you so much, and thank you for supporting my channel. Okay, so it's getting a little bit late, but the last step really is I'm going to come tomorrow and I'm going to give them all a really nice drink of liquid fertilizer. I have been neglecting them for a bit because, you know, the bigger they get, the more scared I am to go and do stuff with them. But now that they have been pruned a little bit, I will be able to do some additional maintenance like fertilizing, and I will also spray it with a very diluted solution of hydrogen peroxide. I find that that helps keep fungal diseases and bacterial diseases at bay, especially for things like my tomato and pepper plants. So that's going to be tomorrow's early morning task that I'm going to be taking care of. And other than that, I'm going to be done for now, and I will try to regularly maintain these going forward so I'm not stuck in this situation where I've got this huge GreenStalk that needs to be managed and that I'm now scared of. And so, like I said, I am going to put a link to that playlist, that curated playlist where I've got all of these GreenStalk videos in order so that you, the beginner, or even you, the more seasoned GreenStalk person, GreenStalk addict, or soon to be addict, is going to hopefully learn something from. Do leave some comments below. I love meeting fellow GreenStalkers and chatting about GreenStalk, so say hello in the comments. And I do have live streams every first Saturday of the month at 10 o'clock Pacific time, so I hope to see you at one of the future live streams. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.